Buried alive, the woman who woke up in her own grave. There are stories that shock us, stories that force us to question the boundaries between life and death. But few are as haunting and unforgettable as the real-life tale of Fagilyu Mukhametzyanov, a woman from Russia who experienced her own funeral, alive. It was a warm June afternoon in 2011 in Kazan, a bustling city in the Republic of Tatarstan, Russia. Fagilyu Mukhametzyanov, a 49-year-old woman known for her quiet life and deep religious faith, was going about her day when she suddenly collapsed at home. Her chest tightened, and she clutched at her heart. The pain was unbearable. Her husband, Fagilyu, rushed to her side and immediately called for an ambulance. Within minutes, paramedics arrived and transported her to the local hospital. What happened next remains one of the most tragic and bizarre medical blunders in modern history. After what seemed like hours in the hospital, a doctor approached Fagilyu, her husband, with grim news. He informed him that Fagilyu had suffered a massive heart attack. They had tried everything they could, but she had passed away. There was nothing more they could do. Fagilyu was shattered. The woman he had shared his life with, the woman who had smiled at him just that morning, was gone. The hospital released her body shortly after, and the family began preparations for her funeral according to Islamic tradition, which typically involves swift burial. Her body was laid in a coffin. Relatives, friends, and neighbors gathered to mourn and pay their final respects. The room was filled with quiet sobs and whispered prayers as mourners shuffled in, offering condolences to the family and saying goodbye to the woman they thought had already crossed over to the next world. But then, something unimaginable happened. As the ceremony began and prayers filled the air, someone noticed movement from inside the coffin. At first it seemed impossible. A twitch, a slight shudder. Surely grief was playing tricks on the mind, but then, before anyone could fully process it, Fagilyu's eyes snapped open. She gasped for air, confused, trembling, and then let out a piercing scream. The room erupted into chaos. People jumped back, horrified and stunned. Mourners screamed, some dropped to their knees in shock, others backed away in disbelief. But there she was, Fagilyu, very much alive, staring at the ceiling of the funeral home, realizing she was trapped in a coffin. Her cries echoed through the room. She began sobbing uncontrollably, clutching her chest in terror. The realization of where she was and what had happened hit her all at once. She had been pronounced dead, sealed in a coffin, and was moments away from being buried alive. Panic surged through the crowd. Her husband rushed to her side, tears flooding his eyes. She looked at me with such fear, he later told reporters. Her eyes were wide, full of horror, as if asking me why we had done this to her. The ceremony stopped immediately. Paramedics were called back in, and once again she was rushed to the hospital, this time very much alive but overwhelmed by trauma. Doctors were in disbelief. Somehow she had been misdiagnosed. She had never been dead. Her vital signs were likely faint, possibly missed in haste. Whether it was a mistake caused by outdated equipment or human error, no one could say for sure, but the damage was already done. At the hospital, she was placed in intensive care. But Fagilyu was not the same. The shock of waking up at her own funeral, of seeing people crying over her, praying for her soul, believing she had died, had taken its toll. Her heart, already fragile, could not bear the psychological weight of what she had endured. Just 12 minutes after arriving at the hospital, Fagilyu Mukhametzyanov died, for real this time, from a second fatal heart attack. The trauma of the experience had literally scared her to death. Her husband was inconsolable. "My whole life is over," he said. "She had been fine just hours before, and now I've lost her. Not once, but twice." News of Fagilyu's story spread like wildfire across the globe. Major outlets like CNN and the Telegraph picked up the chilling tale. Journalists, medical professionals, and everyday people alike were stunned and horrified. In a world where technology and modern medicine are supposed to protect us, how could something like this happen? Was it a medical error, negligence, a miscommunication? Investigations followed. The hospital where she had been declared dead came under intense scrutiny. Officials from Tatarstan promised a full review of emergency procedures and diagnostic protocols. Doctors and nurses were questioned. The story even sparked debates about how we define death and whether our current methods are truly reliable. But for those closest to Fagilyu, no explanation could bring peace. The woman who had smiled, laughed, and loved just a day before was now gone, this time forever. And the terrifying in-between, a living nightmare, would haunt them always. There's something deeply unsettling about this story. We often take comfort in the idea that death is final, that once it arrives, there is silence, peace. But Fagilyu's story forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth, that sometimes death is not as clear as we think, that even in our final moments, mistakes can be made, and those mistakes can be fatal. It is a tragic story, yes, but also a deeply human one, because what happened to Fagilyu could happen to anyone. A misdiagnosis, a rushed decision, a moment of carelessness, and suddenly, the line between life and death becomes horrifyingly thin. In her final moments, Fagilyu didn't just fight for her life. She woke up inside the fear that many of us have imagined, but never truly faced. The fear of being buried alive, of being forgotten, of being sent away before your time. And that is a story none of us will forget. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe for more. Take care.